Some questions decide life or death, and this was one of them. Why would a starving woman rather die than accept the last meal a cowboy offered her? Callum Reed stood on the lonely dirt road, with the sun burning the world around him. The land looked cracked and wounded, the kind of place where hope didn't last long. That was when he saw her. A woman collapsed on her side, skin pale under the dust, dress torn and hanging in ribbons, feet bare and bleeding. She held her stomach like she was trying to keep herself from falling apart. He knelt beside her and unwrapped the small bundle in his hands. Bread and dried meat. His last meal. She lifted her head just an inch, her eyes sharp even through the haze of pain. "I don't need your pity," she whispered. Her voice was thin, but the strength in it hit him harder than any punch. Callum had met stubborn people before, but nothing like this. Not this kind of pride. The kind that kept her alive even when her body couldn't. 3 days earlier, he had heard talk about a woman who had lost everything. In a small settlement miles back, people whispered about her the way folks whisper about trouble they don't want to admit they ignored. They said her land had been rich. They said men had taken it. They said she fought back, and that was when her life turned into something worse than most people could survive. But nobody had said her name. Now she lay in front of him, no longer a story, no longer gossip. She was real, she was dying. And she was holding on to the last thing she still had, her pride. "You need to eat," Callum said softly. "I don't need anything from strangers." She tried to stand, but her body gave up and she fell forward, catching herself with shaking arms. Callum reached out, but she flinched, jaw set tight like she'd rather break than accept help. He had seen pride swallow men whole, seen it leave graves behind. But what lived in her eyes wasn't only pride, it was something deeper, something shaped by betrayal. He set the bundle of food beside her. "I'm not asking you for anything, but if you die out here, the men who did this to you win." Quote, "Maybe that's exactly what they want," she said, voice trembling. "Maybe that's the point." The wind blew hot and dry across the empty land. There was no town in sight, no help coming, just them and the weight of her suffering. "Who are they?" Callum asked. She didn't move, didn't even look at him. For a moment, he thought she had passed out, but then she spoke again, barely above a breath. "Men who take what isn't theirs. Men who destroy what they can't control." Something in her voice struck a memory in Callum, a man from long ago, a man who had once saved him, given him work when he was at his lowest. "What's your name?" he asked. Her eyes opened with effort, and he saw the last sparks of strength inside them. "Why does it matter?" Callum's heart tightened. "Because I think I knew your father." Her face cracked for a split second. Surprise, pain, then the sound of hoofbeats pulled both their heads around. 3 riders approached fast. Callum rose, stepping between her and the riders. He had no gun, only a knife at his belt, but he stood firm. Not as a hero, just as someone tired of watching cruelty go unanswered. The lead rider stopped 10 feet away. A broad-shouldered man with a cruel smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, look at this," the man said. "Thought you'd be dead by now, Ara." Callum felt her flinch behind him. Her name, spoken like a curse, made something cold run through him. "Keep riding," Callum said. "She's not your concern anymore." The man's smile faded, replaced by something darker. "Who are you, some drifter trying to play hero? You picked the wrong woman. She's poison. Ask anybody." "I didn't ask," Callum said. The man nodded at his 2 riders. They shifted their positions slightly, flanking him. It was a practiced move. Callum recognized the formation. Men used to intimidation. "She tell you what she did?" the man asked. "She killed a man, shot him in cold blood over land that wasn't hers." Callum didn't turn to look at her, but he heard her breath catch, not in shock, in something worse, resignation. "That true?" he asked quietly. She didn't lift her head. "Does it matter? People believe what they want." Quote. The man smirked. "See, she can't even deny it." Something in Callum hardened. He had been around long enough to know when a story was a lie dressed in confidence. And this man was too confident. "What's your name?" Callum asked him. "That's none of your—" "Men with nothing to hide don't fear their names," Callum cut in. A small crack appeared in the man's mask. He tugged his reins sharply. "Your funeral. When she turns on you, don't say nobody warned you." He looked at Ara one last time. "You're already dead. You just don't know it yet." The riders turned and galloped off, dust swirling behind them. Callum waited until they were gone before kneeling beside her again. She stared at the untouched food. "I didn't kill anyone," she whispered. "They just made everyone believe I did." Callum nodded slowly. "Your father was Matthias Winslow, wasn't he?" Her eyes widened. "How?" "He saved my life once," Callum said. "Gave me work when I had nothing." Ara's face crumpled. "Then he never saw me like this." "No," Callum said gently, "but he'd want me to help you anyway." "I don't want your help," she said, but her voice broke. Callum stood and looked around. The horizon was empty. The heat unforgiving, the danger growing. "I know," he said quietly. "I'm helping you anyway." Before he could say more, distant hoofbeats echoed again. More riders. More danger. No time. "Come on," Callum said. "We need to move." Ara tried to stand, legs trembling, body failing. She almost fell, but this time she didn't pull away when Callum caught her. Together, they stumbled toward the thin strip of shade ahead, as the sound of riders grew louder behind them. The fight for her life had only begun. Callum helped Ara into the narrow shade beneath the rock outcrop, the ground still hot under their boots. Her breaths were shallow but steady. She looked stronger than she had on the road, but it was still clear her body was close to breaking. He set the bundle of food beside her again, and this time she didn't look at it with anger. She looked at it like she was deciding whether pride was worth dying for. Before she could speak, the thunder of hoofbeats rolled across the land again. Callum leaned forward, scanning the horizon. 5 riders. Same direction, same speed, same purpose. Garrett Voss was coming back to finish what he started. "Ara," Callum said quietly, "we need to move. Now." She tried to stand. Her legs wobbled. Her hand pushed against the rock. For a second she managed to stay upright before her knees buckled. Callum caught her. "I told you I can walk," she said, breathless. "And I told you I'm not leaving you behind," Callum replied. He lifted her arm over his shoulder. She didn't fight him this time. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe something in her had finally decided staying alive mattered more than proving she could survive alone. Together they moved through the rough ground behind the rocks. The earth here was uneven and filled with sharp stones. Each step was slow and painful, but they kept moving. The wind carried voices behind them. Garrett's voice. Angry. Sharp. Close. "We're not fast enough," Ara whispered. "We don't have to be fast," Callum said. "We just need to disappear." He guided her deeper into the rocks, toward a narrow gap that led into a rough maze of stone. It wasn't safe, but it was shelter. A place to hide. A place Garrett couldn't ride through. They slipped into the gap just as the riders reached the outcrop above. They could hear horses snorting, boots hitting the ground, Garrett barking orders. The small space was barely big enough for both of them. Callum covered Ara with his body. As they crouched behind a large boulder, Garrett's voice drifted down to them. "They're close," he growled. "Spread out. Search everything." Ara's breathing sped up. She pressed her hand against her stomach, trying to quiet her fear. Callum leaned closer so his voice wouldn't carry. "Breathe slow. They won't stay long." She nodded. Her eyes stayed locked on the sliver of sky above them. For long minutes they listened to the sound of boots on rock, the scrape of metal, the frustrated curses of men who knew their prey was near but not visible. Then, finally, the sounds faded. The horses began moving again. Garrett's voice grew smaller. "Find them! I want her alive!" Callum didn't move until everything went silent. Then he looked at Ara. "We need to keep going. There's a dry trench ahead. If we reach it, we can circle around them." Ara nodded, gathering what little strength she had left. They made it through the rock maze and into open land again, just as the sun began to drop. The trench wasn't much, just a low dip in the earth from an old water path, but it was enough to hide them as they moved. After an hour of slow walking, Ara stumbled. Her hand gripped Callum's sleeve with desperation. "I can't," she whispered. "Yes," Callum said softly. "You can." "No," she said, shaking her head. "You don't understand. I can't run forever. He won't stop. He doesn't need the land. He wants revenge." Callum stopped walking. She stood there, shaking, her hair tangled, her face pale, her eyes full of something that wasn't fear anymore. It was exhaustion, the deep kind that lived in the bones. "Then we don't run," Callum said. "We turn this around." Ara frowned. "How?" Quote, "Garrett keeps his power with lies, so we bring out the truth." Ara shook her head. "Truth doesn't matter out here. It never did." "It does," Callum said calmly, "if you put it in front of enough eyes." Before she could reply, they heard something ahead, a soft sound. Footsteps. Not Garrett. Lighter. Stumbling. Callum tensed and slipped his hand to the knife at his belt. A moment later, a young man appeared, holding his side, blood soaking his shirt. Cole, the rider who had stood up to Garrett earlier. His face was ashen, but he forced a smile when he saw them. "Don't shoot," he said weakly. "Not that you have a gun." Ara rushed forward as much as her weak legs allowed. "Cole, you're hurt." "Garrett shot me," Cole said. "Said I was a traitor. But some of the men, they're starting to doubt him. They let me go, sort of." He leaned against a rock, nearly collapsing. Callum moved to help him sit. "You shouldn't have come after us," Callum said. Cole gave a short, breathless laugh. "Couldn't let you be the only ones with bad ideas." Ara knelt beside him. "Why help us at all?" Cole's eyes softened. "Because your father once helped my family. He stopped a group of men from stealing our cattle. Didn't ask for anything in return. Men like him, they're rare. You deserve a chance to clear his name. And yours." Callum asked the question that had been growing in his mind. "Where does Garrett keep the real documents? There must be something that proves what he's done." Cole nodded. "He does. He keeps everything in a strong box in the back room of the trading post, but it's guarded day and night now. No way in." "Then we find someone who has copies," Callum said. Cole's expression shifted. "There is someone. A woman in the settlement. Ruth. She handled all of Matthias Winslow's records. She might have saved something important. But Garrett has watchers outside her house." Callum looked at Ara. Her eyes had changed. The hopelessness had cleared. Something fierce had returned. "We go to her," Ara said, "tonight." "We won't make it," Cole warned. "Garrett's men are everywhere." Quote. Callum picked up a handful of dirt and let it fall between his fingers. The wind carried it toward the settlement. "That's why we go now," he said, "when darkness is on our side. When Garrett thinks we're still running." Ara tightened her grip on the satchel Cole handed her. For the first time since the day her world fell apart, she stood straighter. "We end this," she said. And together, the three of them moved into the night, toward the settlement where the truth waited, guarded, buried, but not forgotten. The settlement appeared as small spots of lamplight scattered across the dark land. Callum led Ara and Cole through dry creek beds and shadows behind empty sheds, moving like ghosts, trying not to disturb the night. The deeper they went, the more Ara felt her heart pound. She clutched the satchel tight, knowing it might hold the only hope she had left. When they reached the edge of the settlement, Callum signaled them to stop. Across the dirt road sat Ruth's small house, a warm yellow glow shining from the window. Two of Garrett's watchers leaned back on her porch across the street, smoking and talking in low voices. "Ara," Callum whispered, "once we go in, we can't turn back." Ara nodded. Her legs were weak, her body tired, but something inside her refused to break. "Not tonight. So what's the plan?" Cole asked, trying to keep pressure on his wounded side. "We circle behind the house," Callum said. "The back is dark. If we move quiet, they won't see us." Cole stayed behind to keep watch, while Callum and Ara slipped through the shadows. They moved like breath against the night air. Callum tapped gently at Ruth's back door. 3 knocks, a pause, 2 more. A signal Matthias Winslow used for trusted friends. The door opened just enough for a pair of wary eyes to appear. When Ruth recognized Ara, her face broke with shock and heartbreak. "My lord," she whispered. "Child, what have they done to you?" She pulled them inside quickly and shut the door. The house was simple and clean. A table, 2 chairs, a bed in the corner. Nothing extra. Nothing wasted. "Ruth," Ara said softly, "we need your help." Ruth's eyes filled with pain. "I knew this day might come. I just prayed you'd never have to live it." She went to a loose floorboard and lifted it. From the space beneath, she pulled out a leather satchel. She laid it on the table like it was holy. "These are your father's real records," she said. "He asked me to copy them. He suspected something was wrong before he died." Ara's hands shook as she touched the papers. Property deeds, real contracts, letters. Proof that Garrett had forged everything. "There's more," Ruth added. She pulled out a journal filled with neat handwriting. "Every threat I heard Garrett make, every lie, every number that didn't match, this can clear your name." Before Ara could respond, footsteps thudded on the front porch. "The Watchers," Ruth whispered. "Go." "Out the back window." Ara clutched the documents to her chest. Callum lifted the window, and they slipped into the night just as Ruth opened the door to greet the Watchers with forced irritation. But one of the men spotted the open window. "They're here!" Shouts rose. Lanterns flared. The chase began. They ran for the dry wash where Cole waited. He pushed off the ground when he saw them, grimacing with pain. "Church," he said. "Now." Callum guided them across the dark settlement toward the white church at the center. Its windows glowed with faint moonlight. They pushed through the front door and barred it from the inside. "If we stay until morning," Callum said, "the whole town will be here for service. Garrett can't silence us in front of everyone." Ara looked at the documents spread on the preacher's table. Her father's handwriting stared back at her. Her throat tightened. "This ends tomorrow," she whispered. The long night stretched. They took turns watching the windows as Garrett's men gathered outside. Garrett himself arrived before dawn, pacing, furious, powerless to break into a church without the whole settlement noticing. When the sun finally rose, church bells rang. Families in Sunday clothes approached the building, confused to see Garrett's men blocking the entrance. "What's going on? Why are you here? Where's the preacher?" Quote, Callum opened the church doors wide. Light filled the room, shining on Ara standing at the front with her father's records in hand. Her voice rose clear and strong. "My name is Ara Winslow, and I have something to show you." Gasps spread. People stepped inside. Eyes widened as she laid out the real contracts, deeds, and Ruth's journal. "These are the truth about my father's land," Ara said. "These are the lies Garrett Voss used to steal everything from my family. He forged documents. He bribed officials. He killed a man and framed me for it." Garrett pushed forward, red with anger. "She's lying. She murdered." "No," Ara said. "But you did." Cole stepped forward, leaning on the pew for support. "I worked for him. I saw the bribes. I saw the threats. Garrett killed that man because he discovered the forgeries." Murmurs grew from the crowd. Shock, anger, recognition. For years, Garrett had twisted the truth, and now the truth stood naked in front of everyone. 3 men blocked Garrett as he reached for his gun. A rancher, a shopkeeper, a father he'd cheated years ago. "Your time is done, Garrett," one of them said. The people pushed forward, surrounding him. Garrett's power, the fear he ruled with, crumbled. He was finished. 2 months later, Ara stood on her land again. Her land, legally returned to her after a territorial judge reviewed the evidence. Garrett was in a cell, his men scattered. The corrupt marshal arrested. Cole worked as a ranch hand now. Ruth managed the books, and Ara she was rebuilding. Callum was fixing the fence line when she walked over with 2 tin cups of water. "Thought you might be thirsty," she said. He smiled. Thank you." They stood together, the sun warm on their faces. Ara was stronger now, healthier, and for the first time, peaceful. "I never thanked you," she said, "for not walking away, for helping me when I was too proud to ask." "Your father once saved me," Callum said. "Helping you felt right." Ara looked out over the land that was hers again. "I'm learning strength isn't just standing alone. It's knowing when someone stands with you." She raised her cup. "To my father." Callum raised his. "To Matthias Winslow." They drank under the open sky, and in that moment Ara knew she had found not just justice, not just freedom, but the courage to live again.